Hey, business building warrior. Thanks for joining me today for what's going to be an incredible conversation with a dear friend of mine. Of course, I'm talking about Rabbi Daniel Lapin. He's been referred to as America's rabbi. He's appeared on Dave Ramsey's radio show many times. He's been a keynote speaker at huge events. He's spoken in front of millions of people globally. He's been to our conferences several times as a keynote speaker. And through my interactions with him over the years, we've become close friends. He's an Orthodox Jewish rabbi. Here I am, an evangelical Christian, but we've developed this relationship as he has with so many other leaders in business and other influencers in the world of spirituality and business and politics. This guy is really known. If you've never heard his name before, one, you probably haven't listened to much of my podcast because I reference this guy all the time. You haven't hung out with me much if you've never heard of him. But he's been an advisor to presidents. He's spoken before Congress, and he just loves our community. He's come to our event a handful of times, our big event, the Proven Conference, which if you're not familiar with the event, get over to theprovenconference.com. Get your tickets. We're coming up on May 2025 very quickly, the last 3 days of May 2025, going to Orlando. But he's been to our event many times, and he's grown to love this group. And we've had some very good conversations. And I've got the opportunity now to do a project with him. And today we're announcing that project. And you can get more information on it by going to silentjimdotcom/Lapin, Lapin. That's his name, Rabbi Daniel Lapin. By the way, since I'm dropping his name, here's my favorite book that influenced me more than any other in success in business, Rabbi Daniel Lapin's book, Business Secrets from the Bible. I want you to go check that out as well if you like what you're about to hear today. But this project we're tackling together involves helping the Lapins, he and his wife, Susan, build a coaching team similar to what we've built in my organization. I've had conversations with him, like I said, offline many times, and today we're going to talk about it very openly. The vision that we've shared back and forth is having a group of coaches that they can lean on and rely on, send business to, and send clients to, alongside having your own business, teaching what they call the 5F strategies. And if you're not familiar with 5F strategy, you've heard it. If you've been in our community very long at all, you've been exposed to it without being aware of it. It is a core foundation of what we do around here. I'll give you an example. If you've ever heard me talk about our coaching program, I say things like, you've got to have margin in your life to build an effective business. If you want to go further, faster in business, you got to have margin in the area of your faith, your family, your physical fitness, your finance. You got to have good relationships, your friendships, right? You've heard me say these kinds of things. Well, the 5F concept is straight from their book, The Holistic You, and it lists the 5Fs right on the cover: faith, family, finance, friendship, and fitness. The 5 areas that if you ignore any of them, they can take the others down. And if you got one of them, you still got hope, right? So that's the catalyst that we're using here to introduce some conversations that Rabbi Lapin and Susan and I are going to have completely free webinars, and you can sign up for them at silentjim.com/Lapin. Please go do that. Don't neglect that. You can sign up for text alerts as well. We've actually got a survey on that page as well. If you're saying to yourself, okay, I've been waiting for this. This is beautiful. I want to be a part of this. Sign me up. There's a survey there that you can fill in, but check out the free webinars we're going to do. We don't have dates yet. We will be recording them and sending them out. We will have live interactive sessions as well. But I really have a vision, as do the Lapins, for building out a handful of people, mentoring them, coming alongside of them, helping them build their own coaching organizations based on the principles from the Lapins content and the lessons I've learned doing 20 plus years of e-commerce coaching and building out a robust organization of great leaders. So we're kind of merging those concepts together. We're going to deliver free content and recruit a handful of people to kind of join the team and come alongside and do something special here. So enjoy the conversation I have with my good friend, Rabbi Daniel Lapin. We spent some time today talking about the virtue of business. Don't overlook this portion of the show. The thing I want you to latch onto and to think through with me as we get into this portion of the show is, how virtuous is business in your mind? Do you see it as being a worthy thing, worth your time? Or do you see it as something you got to do so you can do the things that really matter in life? If you see business as a necessary evil, if you see earning an income as something that's less than virtuous somehow, you've got to fix that. Because if you've got inside of your heart an anti-business sentiment, thinking it's less than moral, less than virtuous, all I'm doing is selling a random thing to a stranger who I'll never see again, kind of thing, and you don't associate any virtue with that, you've got to fix that. Because if you're tackling projects that lack virtue, you're going to subliminally sabotage those projects. You will never succeed in business unless you see the virtue in business, is what I'm trying to say. So the topic we cover early on in this episode is vitally important for you to understand and grasp. And we spent a fair amount of time on it. Let me share with you very quickly one of my favorite Hebrew words that I learned from our guests today. I've dropped it many times in the past, but if you've never heard me talk about it, this will be so valuable for you. The word is avodah, sometimes pronounced avwad. And in the Bible, the same Bible we use as Christians, that's used by our Jewish friends, it's referenced multiple times. And it means several different things, and it helps fix that gap in your thinking. So hang with me here. I'm going to give you a couple scriptures where this word is used. We read in Genesis, I don't have the exact scripture references because I'm kind of doing this off the top of my head, but we read in Genesis where God placed Adam and Eve in the garden so that they could work it. That word work, they're working the garden. This is before sin, before the fall. Regardless of worldview, hang with me. There's a valuable lesson here, okay? So work, we read that word work. And then we see later on, we see Pharaoh confronted by Moses. And Moses is saying, hey, the Lord has told me, you better let my people go that they may worship me in the desert. Some translations say serve me in the desert. Worship, serve, work. I've used 3 different words here now, right? You got the 10 commandments. One of them is, hey, 6 days you're going to work, and on the 7th day you're going to rest. That word work that appears there in the 10 commandments. We got the word work, serve, sacrifice, all these different words in different contexts, right? No, it's the same word in Hebrew, the exact same word, the exact same concept. Your work that you do, the stuff you put your hands to, is a form of worship to God, whether you realize it or not. If it's done in service in any way to others, that work is a form of worship to God. Isn't that incredible? That's a form of serving God and others. Those are all combined concepts. Your work, your worship, your service, the sacrifices you make in some translations in English. That is all the same concept. So while it may feel meaningless at times, it may feel small, no, it's a form of worship. It's a form of service that's very significant from a kingdom perspective. So do it as unto the Lord is another scripture that we've heard, right? All right, so that sets up a conversation that I'm going to have with my good friend. I can't emphasize enough. I really want you to come over and join us for some conversations, completely free webinar training. The purpose of these webinars is to help you make more money by grasping these simple concepts. You will put more money in your pocket. You will feel better about it. You'll be better at it, and you'll feel better about it as you're earning more money once you understand these basic lessons of what it means to serve effectively, using the gifts that God has given you to create value for others and be rewarded for it. That is a beautiful, virtuous thing. And the Bible fully supports from every angle the beauty of serving others effectively. And that's what we want to talk about. So you can earn more money and live the life that you know you're called to live. Now, maybe you're called to do something that doesn't involve you earning a lot more money. Then this isn't for you. If you don't feel the need for more, if you don't want to serve more, if you don't want to build or grow in these areas, this content isn't for you. But if you're looking to build and grow and serve more effectively and monetize it, these webinars will be for you. You can join us for free, silentjimdotcom/Lapin. All right, let's go over and get my good friend, Rabbi Daniel Lapin, on the line for a great conversation. It's a little controversial at times. See what you think. Let us know. Send me your feedback. I'd love to hear from you. God bless you, business building warrior. So glad to be on this journey with you. Enjoy the show. So my friend, Rabbi Lapin, it's so good to see you again on the show.
Thank you for having me back, Jim.
Always a pleasure. I think this is maybe the 4th or 5th time. We're approaching 1,000 episodes, believe it or not.
That's beautiful.
You would be up there probably as one of the the most frequent guests with 4 or 5 appearances outside of maybe my coaching director. I don't know.
Well, thank you. That means a lot to me.
It means so much to me as well. And I've shared publicly many times, and I just want to share, not for your sake, because you've heard me say this before, but for the listener's sake today. You are my favorite living author. You've had more influence. Your writing, your work has had more influence over the way I do my business here than any of my other mentors and authors that I read and consume. And it's been so powerful and effective, and it's filtered into every aspect of the things we do. And I know you don't take credit for them being your ideas.
No, I do not.
These are thousands of year concepts, thousands of year old concepts.
But I will tell you that your words on the many, many occasions, and you'll know what I'm talking about, where I'm struggling on a chapter in a book, or I'm struggling on a theme for a podcast, and I may be about to sort of slide into a sense of futility and hope. I just, you sometimes slide into a bad place.
The writer's block.
Your words that I've heard you say to me so kindly several times come back to me, and more than once they have served to throw me back into the battle. And invariably, when you do throw yourself back in, you get past whatever it was that was holding you up. So thank you.
Well, if I could be one of those guys that holds your arms up in the battle, sign me up. I'm a huge fan of everything Lapin, and yeah, we've got a mutual admiration society. I think we could kind of go back and forth and play tennis of compliments here if we wanted to, but because truly, I mean, there's so many specific examples. And for those who are maybe new to my podcast and seeing you and hearing you for the first time, I would encourage you to go back in time and just hear, you're going to hear multiple references to biblical principles. And, my friend Rabbi Lapin, who's on the show today, he is an Orthodox Jewish rabbi. Here I am, an evangelical Christian, but we see the world of business through such a similar lens and such a complementary lens that we've been able to enhance each other's career success because of these timeless principles. So share with me a little bit, just, what comes to mind for you? Give us a lesson today, what's top of mind. And then there's a very specific reason we brought you on the show today as well. We'll dive into that as well. But I just value time spent with you. Give us something that's on your heart today.
The theme of business is very much with me at the moment. I'll tell you why. There used to be, Jim, there was a slew of movies from going back into the 60s and 70s and 80s, a lot of movies like, Wall Street and Greed and Glengarry Glen Ross. And all of these movies were stridently anti-business. The worst guy in the world was the business professional. And so frequently on primetime television, I didn't spend a lot of time watching, but I did have a deep cultural curiosity. And Jim, I can't tell you how many times I caught the cliched scene. I saw it so many times, I knew exactly what was coming. The camera pans up the side of the gleaming glass skyscraper, to the penthouse office at the top, and then zooms in. And the heroic young person, often a girl, sometimes a boy, defying the head of this evil multinational corporation. And, and she's about to disclose to the world how this corporation is destroying the environment and corrupting our politics. And obviously, then the thing the businessman does is what every businessman does: opens his drawer and reaches in to get what every businessman keeps in the top right-hand drawer of his, which is a stainless steel Smith & Wesson 357 caliber revolver, and he's just about to shoot. Well, anyway, this is the pattern, and this is what an entire generation bought into. And then it was not only that, but it was also what was happening politically. If you think about it, George W. Bush, was culturally very unpopular. And, his win in 2000 was controversial, but he won. And who's his vice president? Dick Cheney, a guy associated with really one of the less impressive multi-billion-dollar multinationals, the Halliburton Corporation. Dick Cheney served as CEO, I think, on more than, I think, 2 terms. And so this was the picture that young people were getting of business. And the left no stone unturned in exploiting this whole pattern. And then, he served his term 2000 to 2008, and then came Barack Obama, who was profoundly socialistic leaning, opposed to private property and opposed to business. So much so that in his infamous campaign speech in 2012, actually, I remember it took place in the town my son-in-law comes from, Roanoke, Virginia.
You didn't build that speech.
You didn't build that.
Right. Yes.
He said, and then after him, 2016 came Donald Trump's first term. Now, I was a supporter of Donald Trump back then. In 2015, I started supporting Donald Trump, and I thought he would make a good president. But the bottom line is that he was successfully demonized as this evil New York businessman.
Correct.
And so by 2020, the job was pretty much done in America. And it's interesting to look and see, but as easy as it was to find dozens and dozens and dozens of films that demonized business, the evil, horrible businessman, who, by the way, committed more murder on primetime television than any other demographic.
No villain ever created as many murder scenes as did this the business guy, right?
But the job was done by 22. Today, you don't find that many anti-business movies because it would induce a yawn. It's like the kids would say, duh, were you telling me that business is bad? Who doesn't know that?
Mm-hmm.
And so the socialistic cultural takeover of the university campus and of young people, schools, K through 12 education, it's so complete that there's a lot of hard work to be done. In my coaching work, Jim, I've spoken to, I don't know, maybe 20 wealthy parents who are underwriting their children's self-destructive and nihilistic lifestyle. And I say, why don't you tell your child the beauty of business, the value of getting a job and starting on the bottom rung and working your way up? And they can't do it. They've been so conditioned that they themselves do not believe in the virtue of what they have devoted their own lives to. So, a long answer to a succinct and direct question. I'm finding myself very, very compelled to help people make the case for business, and why it is that I wouldn't hesitate, with a child or a grandchild or a relative or a close friend, I wouldn't hesitate to say, don't waste 4 years in university. Get hold of a job, start working, understand that unless you are a justice on the United States Supreme Court or a post office worker or a tenured university professor, if you're not in those 3 areas, you're in business. I don't care what you do. You're a social worker, you're in business. You're a plumber, you're in business. You're a doctor, you're in business. And the difference between successful social workers, successful plumbers, and successful business doctors, and those who do not do well, and there are plenty doctors who don't do well, the difference is whether they understand that they are in business.
Yeah, performance matters. Right? Performance matters. Service matters. Yeah. Phenomenal. But, those kind of lessons, I translate them into the listening audience today and what you're saying. And it is one of the greater battles. I've been doing this over 20 years at this point, Rabbi Lapin, and I've known you for the greater part of that time. And the thing that got me so excited, I still remember to this day, when I picked up the first book of yours that I picked up was The Business Secrets from the Bible, which you've recently updated. And I'll hold up my copy if someone's watching. Most of our people are just listeners, but Business Secrets from the Bible. This is my autographed copy from one of our first times we ever were at the same time, the same place, the same time. And the thing that jumped out, just reading the chapter descriptions, I was with my wife at the time, and I said, I think I've just found the thing I've been looking for so long that connects this book I love, the Bible, to this calling I feel like I have, which is business and the virtue of business. Because I hear it, like you said, and here's an example I gave you, another one, not to pile on, but the kids' Lego movie, the bad guy. What was the bad guy in the kids' Lego movie? Very popular movie, one of the highest grossing films. Mr. Business, that's the bad guy. That's literally his name.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
it's demonized, literally demonized. The word profit is a bad word.
Oh, yeah.
So is it any surprise that when we set out to build a little side income or even babysit as a teenager, we're apologizing all over ourselves when it comes time for payment, thinking that we're doing something that lacks virtue somehow, but it doesn't.
And we know that it's very, very hard for a decent person to excel at anything that deep in his heart he considers to be morally reprehensible. Yeah. And one of the things I love about coming to your events, Jim, and I don't remember how many events of yours I've spoken at, but maybe 3 or 4 or 5. I've been at a few, but one of the things I love is meeting people that you have given a leg up into the world of business. And I think in total, you've probably put about 10,000 people in business.
Yeah, well, that's how many have been through our coaching program. To my knowledge, we're the longest running e-commerce coaching program in the world. And I've had the same coaching director the entire time. And I credit our success. Again, one of the points that we drive home early on is, I don't care what your business is. And here's how we define a good business. And I was listening to a very frustrating podcast yesterday where I was just dying to just jump in and say, hey guys, wait, time out. I can help here. 2 prominent names, people they were talking about you as well. But they were saying, how do you do business and still make it about people? And I'm like, oh, so many bad premises built into that question. The only way to do business is to make it about people. And here's the delineation I make, and see if you follow me with this. And I was actually on your show recently, and we riffed on this, and I'm going a little further. Here's the clarifying point I think we can make is, are you building long-term mutually beneficial relationships? If so, you're doing it the right way. And it's virtually impossible to do it the wrong way and survive without great levels of deception.
Yes.
Right. Yes. So are you building lifelong relationships? Right. And I love how you share the show Friends, how that lie. Share with me, if you don't mind, the lie, the big lie that the show Friends, the popular show, Jennifer Aniston and the whole crew, like, great show, entertainment, had its moment in the sun and lots of laughs. Some people still watch it. It's one of the most watched shows to this day, I still think, in rerun. What's the big lie, though, that's hidden in that show? I love when you shared that with me.
And Jim, I think what you're alluding to is the fact that this long-running sitcom, 10 years it ran. And I just want to stress that I'm accustomed to people saying, oh, come on, you're seeing things. You're such a paranoic. Just chill. It's nothing but entertainment.
Yes.
And my answer is, there is such a thing as subliminal messaging. And even things as apparently innocuous as entertainment do carry a moral message. And you may not see it, but I guarantee you your child sees it. And the moral message in that movie was that family doesn't matter. Monica's and Ross's parents, Elliot Gould and the mother, I don't know, but they're depicted essentially in a buffoonish kind of a way.
Yeah, irrelevant side characters to be ignored and laughed at.
Completely. And Chandler's parents are sickos and weirdos. In fact, I think we only know really, really sicko people. And I think that's about it. We don't know much else. Joey is sort of warmly nostalgic towards his off-screen sisters and his mom, but bad relationship with his dad. And for the most part, you have to watch for a long time to even be aware of these side characters. Basically, the show is called Friends, not Friends and Relatives. It's called Friends. Mm-hmm. And the idea very much is that that's all you need. Mm-hmm. And I think the whole point of our recent book, The Holistic You, integrating your family, your faith, your friendships, your finance, and your fitness is, and you're about to hold it up right now.
There it is. I've always got it handy. I reference it so often on my own show.
But that, yes, we do need friends, but we also need family. And there is an integration between those two. My relationship with my friends is likely to be better if I also have a good relationship with my family.
Yeah.
And, you'll probably remember from your childhood, as I do, that I had friends I really enjoyed visiting because the relationship in their family was so wholesome and so good.
Yes.
It was just a pleasure being there.
I taught all my boys and our daughters too, as well. We've got four sons, one daughter. And I said, pay attention, the kids you're hanging out with, pay attention to how they treat their siblings. Because if you were to marry them, that's how they're going to treat you.
Yeah, right.
You'll be family someday. That's how they will treat, right? Great lesson. Right. Well, just to swing back, I want to connect some dots because I actually hadn't heard you make the family connections from that show, Friends. There's another illustration that I heard you use when I heard you address it, and that was business was their job was just something they did because they had to and they couldn't wait to get away from it. Again, surrounded by buffoons.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry I missed your cue.
Quite all right. I'm playing clean.
But one aspect of that Susan always points out, Jim, is that the women on that show are more concerned about their work than the men are.
I've never noticed. Okay.
Yeah.
Leave it to Susan to catch that subtle element.
Yeah, Monica is very, very concerned about her work, and Rachel, that's right. Rachel is very, very concerned. Phoebe's a little bit of a flake, but Joey, sort of looks at his work more as a hobby than anything else, and for Ross, it's sort of he has an identity that he's a professor of paleontology, but you don't ever actually see him doing his work in a way that's meaningful.
Right.
And Chandler hates every minute he spends at work. So yeah, it's I missed your cue on that, and you're exactly right.
It's quite right. Here's how I've introduced it to my leadership team, though, and I've made this observation, and it's true that the strongest relationships I now have in the world, it's not the high school buddies I played basketball with. Like, I don't know where any of those guys are. It's not the people I hung out with on weekends in college. I still keep in contact with those folks, of course, but it's the people that I'm doing meaningful work with alongside. I'm serving God's other children alongside them in business with the intention of making a profit so we can maintain our business and continue to grow. But the relationships that I've formed to those very meaningful connections are the most meaningful relationships. And that's not just some strange accident that happened to me. That's very common. And we could riff on this all day. Another illustration that I think really drives that point home is, and this is an illustration that you've used, is the number of doctors operating in high intense situations where lives are at risk. And they're saving lives. And the nurses, let's say it's a female assistant nurse that's by their side each step of the way, how often they end up having an affair because, and they're sure there's a moral deficiency there and there's other problems, I'm sure, but they're doing very meaningful. What's more meaningful than serving people at the level where you're saving their life? So we can extract from that, hey, if you're serving others effectively as a team, there's going to be meaningful relationships that form out of that. Just one of the many virtues of business is these incredible relationships that will form. And when handled properly, of course, it becomes a beautiful blessing for everyone involved. Did I do okay with making that point?
No, that's exactly right. And one of the questions I drop on coaching clients from time to time, Jim, is, look, I place the 5 F's on a circle, not in a list, because I don't want you to mistakenly think anyone is more important than any others. There you go.
Right. I've got my illustration up for those watching, but yeah,
right there.
Faith, family, friendship, fitness, finance.
Yeah. And they're on a circle and you can start anywhere. However, I would say to a client, please name me 3 life circumstances where you'd have to say your work is more important than your family. Again, not in any ultimate sense. I'll sacrifice my work 10 times before I sacrifice a family, obviously. But in terms of day-to-day focus, can you think of 3 times where your work is actually more important than your family? Yeah, I can. Of course I can.
Any responsible business owner has had to make those sacrifices.
Of course.
And it benefits the kids to see it happen.
It's very important. And you, as a father, you've got to, and I'd say particularly as a father, you've got to be comfortable saying to your kid, listen, I'd love to come to your ball game, love to watch you play ball, but I got people depending on me to come fix their roofs this afternoon. So that's what I'm going to have to do.
It's going to rain tomorrow, and if I don't do it, that family's going to have a mess.
So, I'm sorry I'm not going to see you play ball, but while you're playing ball, remember that what you're doing is a game, and what I'm doing is real life.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. Our culture just doesn't do that. Our culture says the dad who misses a baseball game is a bad dad.
Yeah, right.
And I reject that. If my kids can understand, okay, I'm here with mom or grandma because dad's busy serving other people, there's something very, very life affirming. It's a very biblically grounded, sound message.
Yes, it is.
I'm embracing my role to provide and protect for my family. That means I might miss some of those childhood moments, but that's my role.
And this is just one of countless examples of where a biblical messaging makes you more successful at business. Because obviously, if you're feeling guilty about every time you're missing a family event, for heaven's sake, that's why you married. That's what your wife should be taking care of. And you should be explaining to your children the vitally important principle of your prioritizing.
Absolutely. And I can feel our culture kind of shifting back more to those traditional roles. I came from an environment, and my wife and I tried to manage it for a while, and I've run this scenario past you just to be fully transparent. I make the joke from stage sometimes when I'm presenting. My wife graduated magna cum laude, top of her class. She had like 15 job offers immediately. I graduated, thank the Lord. Like I was a C student, right? I was like, get me out of here. And none of my kids have gone to college for reasons that you mentioned and many others. They've launched businesses. Instead of going into debt, they're accumulating money, right, in their early 20s. But the point I'm making is it made sense to us, having not had the kind of training that I was exposed to, several years later when I encountered your material, that, hey, she's the one who got the good grades. She's the one getting the job offers. Go work. And she's like, yeah, I'm out here to conquer the world and let's go corporate ladder. So I stayed home and changed some diapers, and I was miserable. And she went off to the corporate world, getting up early and trying to let us sleep in a little bit, resenting the fact that I was going to enjoy the day, right? It didn't take us long at all to realize, are you as miserable as I am? No, I think I'm more miserable than you. And we swapped, and neither one of us have had any regret. That was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. And we talked.
That's a great story, Jim.
Isn't it? And this was before I met you. And then it made so much more sense at the time. She said, you know what? I want to be the one that's home and wakes up with the baby when the baby wakes up and feeds the baby and changes the dirty diaper and watches Sesame Street for 3 hours with a book in the lap. And I'm like, that's awesome, because I would really rather be out there, conquering that next hill. Right. And I don't think it's a personality thing. There was something universal there. When we brought that baby home, there was something that happened inside of her, and there's something inside of me that said, okay, I got some responsibilities now. I got to get serious.
Yeah.
I turned off all the stuff.
And it's, just to clarify, you and I are both very aware that in a very large number of the people we are working with or will be working with, there are less than optimum circumstances.
Oh, of course. Single moms are the heroes in our community.
So we're not oblivious to that. Mm-hmm. But I think we both believe that in understanding what the blueprint should actually look like, lets us make safe engineering adjustments for the circumstances we have to deal with as they are, rather than as we might wish them to be.
Absolutely. Right. It's the ideal doesn't mean there's no other possibilities to function. In other circumstances, I'm sure that we could have maintained and for a few more years, but there was just something biologically and spiritually inside of us that was just a little off, that was easily corrected with us swapping positions. And I'm only speaking for my wife and I. I'm not trying to impose that on the entire universe.
Oh, I am.
I know you are. There's a blueprint for these things, and that's why the book, The Holistic You. There's some fairly controversial. We've had some fun, interesting conversations around the dinner table. Such as can a guy be best friends with a girl who's not his wife if he's married?
Oh, yes.
Right?
The
Those
big
kind of like,
platonic friend.
yeah, the
Mm.
plutonic friend thing, right? We have these great conversations, and not to
Oh,
dive
it's
off into the
fascinating
business.
because I hear guys saying all the time, well, it's her best friend, and they're going to a concert, an overnight trip on to a concert together. And how do you feel about that? Well, I'm working on my feelings. What do you mean by that? Well, I'm really uncomfortable. I mean, and it's not that I don't trust her, but she's going overnight with this guy who's been her best friend for longer than I've known her. And she promised me that, nothing is happening, that they have no romantic feelings for each other. And I say to myself, what unbelievably destructive damage the culture has done to guys, suppressing every natural instinct. And I start talking, and the guy says, but you know what? I don't want to come across as the controlling boyfriend or the controlling fiance or the controlling husband.
I don't want to be jealous.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But I will say this, that most of them actually relate slightly shamefacedly and with a slight acknowledgement that they realize that I'm telling the truth when I say, you do understand that the guy she's with wants to sleep with her, don't you?
Yeah, biology kicks in at some point. One of the most interesting illustrations of the point we're making now, and we could riff all over the place, family, faith, friendship. I've listened to all your podcast episodes, consumed so much of your content. We'll bring it back to business in a minute, but bear with me here.
This is all related.
Absolutely it is, because if these things are off, you're going to struggle in business.
Yeah.
We say all the time around here, and I won't forget my illustration, but we say you've got to have margin in your life to build a business, to serve.
Yeah, that's such a great way of putting it.
You've in the 5 areas that matter: faith, family, friendship, fitness, finance. You got to have some margin, or you can't go effectively serve others. So if your family is on shaky ground and you're just barely making it day to day, you're going to struggle. Yeah. But the illustration I wanted to make was one of the most brilliant that speaks right to the point that we're making here is, there's a Hebrew saying that goes something like, it's not prophesying to predict what will hatch from a chicken's egg, meaning I know where this is heading. That's not prophecy here. And after 9/11, there was an effort in New York because we lost a lot of good men, right? Climbing the tower, right? Heroes to this day. But a lot of those families with wives and kids ended up having affairs with other firemen. Why? And ended up not having affairs, but getting married to, breaking up families because living firemen were assigned to their friends' families to help them get through that difficult period.
Yeah. And and had they consulted with us, we both would have said to the fire department, great idea. The only mistake you're making is you're assigning a fireman to the widow instead of a fireman and his wife to the widow.
Or send just the wife or them both, but not just the man. Don't send a man to the door with flowers saying, I'm so sorry for your loss. He was my friend too.
Oh, it was more than that. They were sent to take care of the leaking faucet and the replacing the circuit breaker and mowing the lawn. They were essentially sent to be surrogate husbands, which they then proceeded to do.
And the families were destroyed as a result. And if you don't understand and can't connect those dots, I'm afraid that we're going to have a hard time explaining the rest of where we're coming from on that issue. But yeah, I mean, it only makes sense, the number of affairs and just families that were destroyed after the initial round of destruction. It was just compounding. But okay, well, let's get it back. I talked in the introduction today about a project you and I have been working on along with Susan, your beautiful wife. And man, I'm just so excited to be getting into this. Let's fill folks in a little bit on that. I'll give a little intro for it. You kind of take the ball and run with it from there. So I've set up a website where people can check this out, silentjimdotcom, just like you see here, /Lapin, Lapin. This is a project that we're launching together where it kind of was born out of an observation that you and I made, a short conversation we had several years ago, where you were at one of my events and you were kind of observing the coaches and the team and this core group that I had kind of representing and carrying the ball for me on some of these concepts that we train and teach. And I had the thought, and you did it almost simultaneously, like, I want this for you, Rabbi Lapin. I want this kind of core group. I want these people that you can work with to kind of multiply effect of what it is you guys do, these coaches that
Yes.
can represent you.
And I saw you had done that so successfully.
And it's been part of our model for so long. And I learned these things from you. So this is the case of the student almost becoming the teacher, saying, hey,
Yes.
let's apply what you taught me back to your business because I see a gap here, right?
Yes.
And so I want to be a part of helping find a handful of people that can come in and just be absorbed and mentored by you, and then go out and build their own beautiful businesses, be a part of what you've got going on. To what degree those worlds connect, we're still figuring out, but become 5F coaches, basically.
Yes.
So talk me through a little bit there. Who are we looking for? What's your vision for this program? And let's riff on that just a little bit.
The formula is so powerful. This is definitely not the case. And I have no false modesty. I have no bruised ego or anything. I certainly have a robust ego, but I have no trouble acknowledging that the success that I have enjoyed coaching and the success that my clients have been able to carry forward into their lives doesn't have very much to do with me or my personality or my, stunning good looks, but all it has to do. I don't know why people smirk when I say that.
I'm just thinking about you being a swimsuit model that one time you were turned down.
Yes, that's right.
Proof that anti-Semitism is alive and well, right?
Yeah, right. I have my moments of fun, but that there is a remarkable formula here, again, based on deep and compelling, incandescently brilliant biblical insights. And the most important thing is that we are created to connect. We are created for relationships. And obviously, male and female is established by the second book of Genesis. By the next few chapters, did I say second book? I meant second chapter. But by the next few chapters, we've already established our relationship with money and the relationship with family and the relationship with friends comes directly after that. And I don't know if I've ever pointed this out to you, Jim, but Job, from whom God took everything, his money, his family, took away everything. Job
Curse
survived.
God and die was his wife's advice. Curse God and die.
Yeah, just call it's done. And in chapter 3, his life starts turning around because of his friends. Mm-hmm. He meets his friends. Mm-hmm. And the obvious question to ask is, why did the Satan not take away the friends as well? Since this was meant to be a test of how Job would do if everything was taken away from him, and it turned out that the friends saved his life and put him back on the road to hope and the future, why did Satan not take away the friends? Yeah. And the answer is because God had said a little earlier, you can take whatever you want, you may not kill him though. And so Satan said to God, I now want to take away the friends. God said, sorry, that violates rule number 1. I said, you can't kill him. No friends, he doesn't survive.
Wow, that was his lifeline.
And so that biblical principle that we relate not only to our family, not only to our finances, but also to our friends, crucially important. And so some of the stuff is so brilliantly self-evident that it's actually very, very easy to coach, because in coaching, you sometimes have to help the client realize that you're holding out the answer for him. Over here, clients' eyes light up when this is all laid out, their eyes light up and they know exactly what has to happen and where this has to go. And so I did think to myself, I'm not the only person that can do this. I mean, the system can be administered by anybody. It's like, when I pull the trigger on that 357 Magnum and a bullet flies out the 4-inch barrel at 600 feet a second, that's not because I'm so strong. It's not because I'm so effective. No, it's because somebody else packed a huge amount of chemical energy into that brass shell casing, and that's why it happens. Anybody can discharge it. And in a similar way here, the genius of this system of laying out your life and improving every aspect of it is not something I came up with in one brilliant flash, or it's not something that some philosopher, long dead philosopher came up with. No, this is an entire comprehensive Bible-based system that just plain and simply works. And once you have been shown how to use it and administer it, then you can use it not only in your own life and that of your relationships, but also to enrich the lives of clients, students who will come your way to grasp hold of this lifeline.
Absolutely. It is practical. I always like to point out, regardless of worldview, it's practical. There's entire cultures that are thriving economically.
Yeah.
Not because everybody reads their Bible every day, but because they've embraced these basic tenets.
Yes.
Biblical truth to the degree that it's tipped their culture into a positive direction of success economically.
It's a little bit like our conversation with the sitcom Friends earlier, which is that, yes, the Bible is filled with narratives and stories and accounts, and they're an important part of it, but you've got to be able to open your mind to the subliminal message that lies just behind the narrative. And that's really what we help people do.
Mm-hmm. I'm even for some reason reminded, a guy I would love to hear you sit down and have a 4-hour conversation with sometime, Jordan Peterson. And because I've studied the two of you enough that I kind of know where there's little gray overlapping, those little gray areas are where the two of you could have just some fun and riff. But one of the things he said is, and I love the way he put it, I think he preaches some better sermons than the Christian pastors I sit under sometimes. And he's not necessarily a Christian at this point. It's up for debate. But he made the observation, he said, it's not that whether the Bible is true or not. That's not the debate. The Bible defines truth for our culture. It is the definition of truth. It's the foundation that we're all standing on. Because it's easy to say, well, you do the right thing. Well, what is the right thing? What's our premise here? So much of Western civilization is built on the premise that murder is wrong. Well, why is murder wrong? Well, because God said it's wrong in the book. I mean, that's the premise that we're standing on. It's hard to come to these conclusions. The 10 Commandments don't make sense if we're just randomly sit down and make up some rules. They don't make a lot of sense, especially that one about the Sabbath. Like, what's that about? Like, rest one day a week? Like, that's a commandment? What? But you start looking at the reality of ignoring these commandments, and you've set up a culture for ultimate failure.
And it's also seeing that it's part of a comprehensive, unified reality. The idea of pushing against the world for 6 days a week, and then the seventh, stepping back. It's a little bit like the way we breathe.
Inhale, exhale. Yeah.
Out and in. And other aspects of life as well, where there is a push and a retreat. And this is life-affirming and strength-giving.
Yeah. And the rules work. Again, whether you believe that Noah actually built an ark and put animals on it or not, or if you've ever been to Sunday school or not, the principles are so practical that you're foolish to ignore them. And it's based on thousands of years of longitudinal study, which is the first time I ever heard that phrase was from you, of course, talking about the Jewish people, the Hebrew nation that has thrived in spite of incredible, intense opposition, and the most attacked people group, one of the smallest people groups in the world, but thriving beyond any measure. Like, what's going on there?
No, it's amazing. 5 million Israelis have a higher GDP than 100 million Arabs in the 4 contiguous countries.
Right. What's going on there? You got to explain it. In your book, Thou Shalt Prosper, you tackle that head on as the opening issue.
Yes.
Which was my second book of yours I ever read. And you eliminate all of the racist explanations. And all you're left with is, there's some power in this book. And the thing I learned from you as well that just blew my mind is, most people who call themselves Jews, who are Jews, they come from the Jewish lineage, are atheists or agnostic in their belief systems, but they still apply these principles.
Yeah.
It's incredible to me. And there's no college professor out there that can pin this down any better than you do. Is you come right back to the book, the principles in the book, the God's word. This stuff works. And so that's what we want to build out. The website I want people to go to after they hear this, if it resonates with them at all, because what we're going to do is a handful of, we're going to sit down, and I think Susan's going to be involved, your wife, and we're going to bring in a handful of other guests maybe as well, and just create some free webinars, some great content. So you can start to deploy very practically. I want you to make more money as a result of going through these sessions with us. Unapologetically, I want people to make more money. That's the goal. Have stronger families, absolutely. Your friendships, your faith. But we're going to focus in on the money piece, correcting the mindset. But what we're going to do is filter through the people who attend this series of webinars. We're not sure how many we'll do exactly yet. We'll see what momentum it has. But we want a handful of people to step up and say, you know what? I want to be a 5F coach. I want to work with the Lapins. I'll be helping alongside as well, whatever team we form. And it becomes certified is the word that we've kind of kicked around in these concepts. So any final thoughts on that as we start to shape this out? We're kind of seeing who gathers. Let's serve them with excellence. Let's see what emerges. But what other thoughts do you have on these topics, Rabbi Lapin?
I think at your initiative, we've set it up as a no-lose scenario, which I kind of love. We're saying participate, not because we want your $20 registration fee. There isn't a $20 registration fee. We want your participation. And that's beautiful. Yeah. I'm happy to be doing it.
Absolutely. Well, I know when you serve well, good things happen, and people will line up with their certificates of gratitude.
Exactly.
Right? If the ones who want more. But it's just going to be an honor to serve alongside you and to share these truths. You've built an incredible community. I'm a proud member. Let me just share it with the listeners today. WeHappyWarriors.com is your website. I'm a member there. I've met some incredible people, great conversations. When I say I listen to every podcast of yours, I absolutely have heard every episode. I was a little disappointed to record a podcast episode with you recently, the first time I've been on your show, because I know that's a Saturday run that I'm going to take. And I'd be like, I can't listen to that episode. It's me. So I'm going to miss a whole week of Rabbi Lapin wisdom. But it was an honor to be on your show. But I love your podcast. I consume your content, and for me, just speaking as a Christian, when we speak to fellow believers for a moment, and like in my arena, it's made the Word of God come to life in a way that no pastor I've ever sat under has, because of the practicality. You speak Hebrew, the language the book was written in, the language God carved into the tablets on the mountain. That's the language of the Old Testament, and so few Christians speak it or understand it. And I've even shaped my vocabulary to a great deal around these concepts. I've tried to eliminate certain words from my vocabulary, right? So I take these things very seriously, and you've shaped our family and our business in more ways than I can possibly express in our short episode today. But you're impacting far more people than I think you realize, and I have my name tied to yours on this project is an honor that is going to be hard to equal.
Well, I'm looking forward.
Thank you so much, my friend. Well, this is...
Jim, thank you. It's always fun talking with you, and I hope we do it again real soon.
Oh, I'm sure we will. We're going to create some great content for the community. And for those of you who are hanging out with my good friend Rabbi Lapin and I today, here's what I want you to do. Go to silentjim.com/Lapin, Lapin, and check out the free webinars that we're going to be doing, diving deeper into these topics. I think we'll probably even have time to interact with those who gather and answer questions. I can't wait to do this with you, my friend. And thanks for being on my show today. Tell Susan I said hello.
Will do. Thank you very much, Jim.
Thank you. Bye for now.